Warning, this show may be triggering for anybody experiencing gambling-related harm. Please watch cautiously. We speak from our experiences only. Please seek professional help for a gambling addiction.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bet Free Life. I'm Christina, and I haven't placed a bet since March of 2021.
And I'm Brian. I have not placed a bet since July of 2014. Happy New Year, Christina.
Happy New Year to you, too.
We're putting out this episode on July. I'm so used to saying July. December 31st on New Year's Eve because, I gambled on New Year's Eve before. So why not talk about gambling addiction on New Year's Eve?
So many years I gambled on New Year's Eve. So many years. I think even just last year, I gambled on New Year's Eve. And this will be the first New Year's Eve that I will not be gambling. I've been struggling, I think, with urges and stuff. And I've talked about this in the last few episodes.
Have you moved past? Are they still there? Because I know you did holiday gambling and it's the holidays.
You know what? The last few days I've been okay. I think Tuesday of last week, I talked to you, I think, about this. Tuesday of last week, I had probably one of the worst days I've had since I entered recovery. And it was just like a combination of things that had just kind of been piling up. And then on top of that, I got my Christmas bonus that day. And I wasn't supposed to get it until the next day. And I had taken that afternoon off to do some doctor's appointments and some other appointments. And I got that Christmas bonus and I wasn't expecting it that day. And I'd been real careful not to make sure that I don't have access to extra money, especially when I'm off work, because that is a trigger for me. And when I got my Christmas bonus, it was more than I thought it was going to be. And so then that kind of triggered instant, like, ooh, money people don't know about, money my husband doesn't know about. I could gamble this and nobody would know. And so here it is, 9 months in recovery, over almost 10 months in recovery. And I still have those thoughts of I could do this and nobody would know. But here's the thing, I would know. And I'm at the point now that I've lived life in recovery for so many months that I don't want to go back to life before I accepted that I was addicted, before I accepted that gambling was ruining my life. I don't want to go back to the sleepless nights. I don't want to go back to the hiding things from my spouse. I don't want to go back to a life where I was isolated, lonely, and hurting. I don't want to go back to that life. And so I know now that I have so much more to lose than just money. It's just remembering that. Some days it's easier to remember that than others. And I think too, the further you get away from that last bet, sometimes you forget the sting of it. And so I think that's why it's so important to listen to other people's stories, read other people's stories, and just have that connection to remind us all why we want better for not only ourselves, but for each other in this community. So yeah, it was a really tough day. And I have to share this story though. It turned out to be pretty good. At the end of the day, I had a hair appointment and I was just having this really hard day, these really urges, like panicky, kind of sweaty urges. Like, I'm sure people will probably understand that, but like almost panic attack style. And I had reached out to people. Anyway, I was getting my hair done and somebody secret Santed me and paid for my hair. So it was almost kind of a way of like being rewarded for making the right choice and not, because I had moments where I was like, I could cancel all my appointments. I could go gamble and nobody would know. But I went to my appointments. I shared with my husband that my bonus was more. We made plans of what to do with the extra because I'm at the point in my recovery where every penny is accounted for and probably will be for the next few years. So, but I'm doing okay.
Well, good that you're doing okay. But when you were talking about the hair appointment and the Secret Santa, that to me was in my mind immediately. I went back to when I gambled. And like, not only did I get more money than I thought, but then I didn't have to spend as much money as I thought. This is a clear sign I should gamble.
Yeah. I've had so many of those too. And I think normally it probably would have been like, oh, this is a sign I should gamble extra money. Like this is a good sign. But for me, it was clearly a sign that I should not gamble because it wouldn't stop at that bet. would go down a road where if I thought I could get away with it that time, then my addicted brain, that addiction would come roaring back and make me think that I could get away with it every time. And then I'd be right back into the same vicious cycle. So it starts with just not making that first bet and, really asking for help, talking to people who I know understand what I'm going through and know how to best help me work through it.
We should say hello to, we have a sponsor on this show now. Gamban.com and the app known as Gamban. Christina, did you do online gambling?
I did not, but as I work in the communities, in the online communities, I get in there and I try and help people. I see so many people in there who have struggled with online betting, sports betting. It's growing at such a fast pace. It's spreading to different states. It's something that's definitely growing here in the U.S. And I see people in the rooms and things like that who don't even know that there's software available to block online gambling. And that's why Gamban is so important, because it's a software that you can download on all your devices and it will block your access to online gambling.
And you get that urge and I'm going to go gamble. And then Gamban says, nope, sorry, stop right there. You can't gamble on this website. We blocked this website. And it's not pricey. It's not that expensive. They have different plans. You can do a monthly or a yearly. But the nice thing about that is you're paying for your recovery. If you put a few dollars, what it costs a month, into your recovery, it's not a big deal. That's a good thing to do. And I think that it's not necessarily the software itself, but the people who work at Gamban that Christina and I have both had plenty of conversations with are excellent individuals. Some of them lived experience themselves. And so it's just an excellent tool to have if you were ever or are an online gambler, to help you block this. Provides that friction that you need. That moment before you deposit more money, that's friction. You need that moment to think about it. Gamban provides you that moment. Wonderful people, and they have reached out and were nice enough to sponsor us and what we talk about in these videos, trying to spread awareness of gambling harm. So thank you to Gamban.
They are a great company and it's a great partnership.
Self-destructive behavior, I feel like, is what you wanted to talk about. And I think that's a good idea because I have a lot of it, even though gambling was one part of it. Staying out all night drinking was another part of it. Texting the other end of my relationships at all hours of the night was another part of it. Trying to play one against another was another part of it. And then, skipping work to go try to win at the casino to try to get out of the job so I could follow my passion and all this. It was just so much self-destructive behavior. And I don't understand why in the world I'm so self-destructive in that regard.
Yeah, me either. I felt like I've had a self-destructive streak my whole life. I really felt like I've always been that type of person that just wants to kind of go against the grain or just not reform or not. But at the same time, people look at me and they're like, I just look like your typical do what you're supposed to do kind of person, And I am. I just still kind of have this little thing I don't know. I just don't necessarily always want to do what I'm told or live life the way that small town dictates or, those types of things. So I think I've always kind of struggled with this, but lately I'm a very visual person. And like the back in the day, those staple red buttons that you would just push.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. Like I just have this big button, and there's all these warning signs that says, do not push, will self-destruct. And it's like, that was very typical of that Tuesday that I was really struggling. Like, it was like this button was flashing in front of me and I just wanted to punch it. Like, I just wanted to self-implode. And I'm not sure where that's coming from. I've talked through it with people, and I think a lot of it is because of all the damage and harm that I caused in my recovery. In my addiction before I stepped into recovery I'm still traumatized by a lot of that. I'm still traumatized by my behaviors. I'm still traumatized by the loss of friendships and relationships. I'm still traumatized. just by a lot of things that happened during those years of gambling. And when things start going good for me, knock on wood, they have been going good for me. I feel like I don't deserve it. And like I need to do something to like break it. And self-destruct, because I don't feel like, even like when in the communities, people reach out to me a lot and they say these wonderful things. And I'm like, I don't deserve that. Like that will kind of set it off for me too. I don't know. I guess I just get scared. I think that's the best way to describe it, is I just get scared when things are going good and it doesn't feel right.
I remember like taking breaks from gambling, not gambling, being fine. All of a sudden there's money in my account. And I know, like I look at that money and I go, if I gamble this money, I won't be able to pay rent. I'll be behind on all my other bills because I won't have money. I don't get paid for another 2 weeks. But I might win. And also I get to go gamble. And there'll be, women out at the casino, and what if I win? And then I end up in a car and then we just drive off together. And this is my fantasy. And it's such a weird, I could just go to sleep. If I just go to sleep, all will be well. But instead it was like, no, I'm going to go get in my car and drive to the casino and burn it down. All this good time that I have, I'm going to burn it to the ground. And I don't know why. I think, I guess I know why. It feels good. It feels good till it doesn't, but you're not prepared for when it doesn't. You just know it'll feel good. And you're hoping that will continue, that good feeling. And it never, ever, 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 ever did. It always was either wake up the next morning or you're still up the next morning and you're like, what have I done? Why didn't I listen to myself? How many times did I not listen to myself?
So much worse, always. Never pans out. Same for me. Like always thought, well, I'll win and everything will be right. But it didn't matter. I did win. I won so many times and I couldn't leave with it. Especially the last few years. It didn't matter how much I won. I wasn't winning. What is it they say in our recovery group a lot? Future wins are only future losses. And that's the absolute truth. So when you're thinking about going to that casino and placing that bet, future wins are just going to be future losses because it's going to keep you in the cycle.
Yeah. I won plenty. Right. And then it's not, I won. I'm out of here. Going to go pay those bills now. It's, I won. Well, I'll save some and I will gamble the rest because gambling feels good. And I wanted to feel good. Unless that win came at 4 a.m. and I'd been there all night long, maybe that would get me out of there. But that was never the case. It was always, anytime I won, there's always a little bit more time to try to gamble a little bit more. I don't know if that was greed or if it was just
addiction.
Yeah.
I think that was addiction. And what still surprises me is when I hear, because we've been friends for what now? A few months, 3-4 months?
Ages.
Oh,
well, yeah. Okay.
It feels like sometimes it's ages, but I still hear parts of your story and I'm just like, it's still so similar, even though yours happened so long ago and you were so much younger than I was. There's still so much similarity in how you express the behaviors and the things that you, when you talk about putting the money back and saying, okay, well, I'm not going to spend this. I need to pay my bills with this. And then you're like, but I have this extra and I can play it. And I would do the same thing until that money was gone. And then I would dig into the stash that I wasn't going to spend and play it until I literally walked out with nothing. But it got to the point where if I had money, I couldn't leave. If I had money in my checking account I could access, I couldn't leave. If I had money that I won, I couldn't leave. It just got to the point that if I had money, I could not leave until and you were talking about this too in the previous meeting episode that we just did, where you feel like you just start feeding the machine, even though you don't want to be there. You hate that you're even there, but you're just feeding the machine so you can just go home because you can't leave with the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's exactly how it was for me. But it still just surprises me sometimes when you talk about your experience and I compare it to mine, and we're all so different in this community, and we all have different experiences, different stories, but there's still sometimes just that core commonality.
I'm going to tell you one of my stories because it's stuck in my brain and it might as well, but
Well, it's just you and I here. So
yeah, just us. I don't know. I was in the midst of gambling and one of my good friends was getting married. And he was having myself and a couple other people over to his house the week before to hang out, before he got married. And I I was working, but again, I was gambling. So I had enough money for my tuxedo rental and my hotel room that I needed to pay for the wedding. And it was a really cool wedding. It took place at Michigan State University. And like, we got to go into where the field is and stuff and take pictures. It was a cool wedding. But when he and another friend of mine had tickets to whoever MSU was playing that week before. And he's like, "Oh, Brian, I don't have a ticket for you. I'm sorry." I was like, I'll be fine. I'll hang out at your house. Don't worry about me." They left. And within 15 minutes, I grabbed my wallet, my keys, and there's a casino by them in mid Michigan. And it's not a big casino. It didn't attract me other than there was one there. It didn't have any of the stuff I liked. At that point I was a slot player, and it didn't have any of the games that I liked. There's that certain feel about some of them, and some of them were so new that I couldn't stand them. And that's a odd feeling, but it just is. I didn't have that, but I didn't care. I was going to go gamble. And it was such a small casino. It felt like you were in a high school gym. And I remember walking by one of the tables and I was like, I don't want to sit at this table. There's barely any people here. This is just weird. It was a weird feeling. And I ended up losing everything I had. I went to the ATM several times and I lost everything I had. And I got back to his place. They got back from the football game. And I said, I think I don't remember if I cried, but I was like, "Listen, man, I am so sorry, but I gambled while you guys were gone and I lost all of my money and I can't afford the tuxedo and I can't afford the hotel." And my friend, he knew like I went to the casino and gambled and stuff. He went with me one time when I was 18. He saw firsthand like how long I gambled for, because he was like, "Let's go, man, let's go." And this was 8, 9, 10 years later. And here I am telling him how much money I lost. He's just like, "Oh, it's okay. I got you." He paid for the tuxedo for his own wedding for me. He paid for my hotel room. And I was like, I just feel shitty about all this. Like, I feel so dirty and shitty that I'm 29, 28, 29, somewhere in there, 30. And I couldn't pay for these things. He covered me. And I kind of came to terms with it. I was like, all right, well, I'm here for his wedding. That's what he wants. And it wasn't until checking into the hotel and she's like, "Can I have your credit card, sir?" And he passes me his credit card, and I just see his brother go, "What the hell?" And right then and there, I just felt so shitty. And just like, I'm 29, 30. It's like, what have I done with my life? Why have I done this to myself? I didn't want to go to that casino, but I went because I was so fucking addicted to it. And that's just like a little shitty story, but there were no repercussions. Like, my friend was just trying to help me out. There was no repercussion for me. And so other than like, I have carried this guilt from that feeling, which, goes away, then it comes back. It's one of those, when I think about it right now, I feel gross and dirty. But I'll forget about it again in another 6 months. And then it'll be a year later that it comes back. And I'm like, oh God, what a bad feeling that gives me. And I'll see this friend this summer.
Sorry. Have you talked about it before with anybody? Have you shared that story?
I've shared this story a couple times. But
I think it would help. Like, when I share those stories, and I have so many, Brian, I have so many stories, and some of them just really are just very similar to that or worse. and so much worse. And I know, and I'm just now starting to kind of scratch the surface of really accepting my behaviors on those and kind of talking about them. But there's a sense of peace for me when I talk about them. And like, it doesn't, and I know as my recovery progresses and through the podcast and those types of things and this show, I'll share more of those parts of me. But I know that when I do talk about them, it kind of releases that energy for me a little bit. Like, I don't know, it doesn't hold me hostage as much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, the more you talk about these things, the better. And for me, GA rooms are a hard one to talk about specific stories because they don't like you to talk about amounts, and amounts can be triggering. And that's why we put up a trigger warning, because on this show, we talk about our specific stories, and I need to, and I think people need to hear specific stories of just how bad it can get.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's another way of connection, like, okay, well, I have this, whatever, I lost tens of thousands of dollars in the casino. And I think to hear that somebody else did that. I haven't done the financial inventory. I don't know that I will. I don't know that I will go back all those years and look exact. I mean, some people detail it very specifically. They want to know the exact amount, but there's too much of this win, loss. And I don't think I will go that far back. I think what's gone is gone for me.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, a lot of money. And I just, so I think when people hear that and they can connect with that, but then there's people out there who maybe didn't lose as much money or didn't spend as much money, but it was still just as impactful on them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it's a way that it gives us kind of a sense of connection.
Amounts can be deceiving because somebody in a room might say, I lost $500,000. And you're like, I didn't lose that much. Maybe I don't have a problem. No, you absolutely have a problem. You just, make a lot less money.
Exactly.
For me, I was an hourly worker. I gambled away my paychecks, my entire gambling career. That's what I gambled away, my paychecks, and then accumulated debt on credit cards and payday loans and shady loans. And that was my gambling. And it was all my money for 14 years. I had nothing to show for it. Right. And so that is just as impactful as somebody who lost $1 million, because, maybe that was, it's different, right? It's relative to your situation. So never, ever think that you don't have a problem because you didn't gamble away as much as the other person.
If it's causing a problem in your life, it's a problem.
Yeah.
No matter how big, no matter how small, it's causing
if you are thinking about and wishing you had the money that you lost gambling, then you probably should look into your gambling and take a healthy look at it, because it's probably causing you harm.
And I think it doesn't matter the type of gambling you did either. Some people are extremely addicted to scratch offs, or lottery tickets, or pull tabs, or online casinos, or regular casinos, or bingo. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's taking over your life, if it's causing problems in your life. Definitely find some help. Talk about it.
Yeah, if you're thinking about time and money lost all night long, then look into it. Even if it didn't cause you financial harm and you're just like, wow, I spend all my time gambling. Huh.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got to look out for you. Nobody's going to save you. You need to take it upon yourself to go get help, because right now no one is going to help you. I mean, let me rephrase that. People will help you once you ask for help, but no one's going to pop into your head and solve your problems for you. You got to be outward with what's affecting you and tell someone. I would use New Year's, where I would be like, all right, I'm going to stop gambling in the new year. What is it? December 3rd? I'm going to gamble the rest of the year. That sort of thing. And the real stopping, the real quitting is when you leave it and you just feel so empty because you're like, I can't, it's over right now. Like literally right now, as you're watching this video, just stop, just be done. And that's where we all stop, because it's just so hard. Cause you're like, but I just one more time, one more cigarette. Right. And you just have to stop. If you really want to stop, you have to stop, just stop. And I realized that we say just stop, and it sounds like asshole kind of advice, because many people just say just stop when they don't understand the addiction. But for those who understand it of how bad it can get, you kind of do need to just, it's over. You just have to accept it's over and then go get help to deal with the urges and to deal with the thoughts.
Yeah, there's no magic formula. Unfortunately, there's no magic spell that you can say that will just automatically make it go away. It really just boils down to stopping one day. And
I will say, I do know somebody who did hypnotherapy to stop gambling.
Okay, I've heard that. I've heard some people that have done that.
I'm
and
fascinated by that, because if that works, open that market up.
Be a game changer. But yeah, and I think too, it's the realization that gambling shouldn't affect our lives. Period. It shouldn't impact our lives in any way. Even if you're somebody that enjoys gambling, it's not necessarily ruining their finances, but you find yourself planning vacations around it, or doing things that are kind of out of the norm so that you can gamble. For me, it was understanding that gambling shouldn't impact my vacations. It shouldn't impact my family time. It shouldn't impact my work. Gambling is just a thing. It's just a thing. And to let a thing have so much control over me, it was the realization that I don't want this thing to control my life anymore. And I know that sounds too simple. I know it sounds, maybe, especially if you're right in the midst of it. But that's really what it was for me. Like, gambling just shouldn't impact our happiness, shouldn't impact our sad. It should make us sad. It shouldn't make us broke. It shouldn't make us, miss family reunions or, miss all that time. It's just a thing. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that kind of keep me moving forward.
Yeah. Don't let gambling kick your ass. You kick gambling's ass.
That's right. There you go.
Christina, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
And Happy New Year to everybody watching. This was the Bet Free Life. For Christina, I'm Brian. Thanks for watching.
Where's the hashtag talking helps? From your high budget studio.
It was on the floor.
Talking helps. It does.